Hi, and welcome to For the Love of Dogs and the Humans. I'm Deb from Busy Paws, and this week we've got something a little bit different. We are going to be having a chat to Claire from Animal Energies. She is a animal kinesiologist and does everything animal healing. So very excited to have her chatting to us today. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Deb. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Before we start, can you give us a rundown of what actually got you into working with dogs in particular? I know you work with all sorts of animals, but what got you into doing kinesiology?
So, when I started working with dogs, it was as a trainer and behaviourist. But I really found I was hitting some difficulty with dogs where their issue wasn't really understood. Because I think when you're trying to resolve dog behaviour, you really need to understand the problem clearly so that you know which techniques to bring in to work with. So when we're working with rescue dogs, for example, when you don't know their background, it was really quite tricky. So I wanted more information. I was always curious about the why. I actually saw an animal kinesiologist working a very different form of kinesiology about 20 years ago, working with a dog to overcome grief. And it was part of a workshop, and I was introduced to muscle testing and how it could identify specific emotions that were held in the body. And I thought, this is what I need. This is the missing piece of the puzzle. I need to identify exactly what is unresolved with these dogs to be able to help them from a training and behavior perspective. So I started to learn a little bit about that. The other aspect was the more I was working with dogs, the more I was aware that they mirrored their owners and that they were very similar. And that went from dog training classes where the dogs would walk in with their humans and they'd be walking the same way, or they would look the same. And it kind of went from that to recognizing, they actually learn the same way as well. If the dog is struggling to learn something, I need to teach their human how to learn what I'm explaining so they can then teach their dog. So it was really interesting. And then obviously when you're doing behavior work and you're doing a deep dive into the issue, seeing the similarities between them and even the similarities in their stories and what they've been overcoming or emotions that they were dealing with at the time, it became really clear, there's more to this. There's another dimension to this that we're really not looking at just with dog training. So that just took me on a deep dive into that. And I was like, I want to explore what this is. I want to know what that is. And I'm going to just keep trying different things till I find it. But kinesiology just gave me all of the answers that I was looking for. Most of kinesiology is just taught for humans. So I had to take it and adapt it to animals and kind of pioneer that aspect of it. And yeah, it's been so rewarding and I absolutely love it.
Well, I know you've worked with me and my rescue boy, Kip, and we've had some amazing breakthroughs. And what you say about the way we learn, our dogs learn, is just so true. And just having that deeper understanding of what's actually going on for him has made huge changes to the way we live. For those people that are unfamiliar with kinesiology, because like you said, it is used more for humans, I think people are becoming more aware of the energy healing side of things. But what is kinesiology in simple terms?
Well, kinesiology is the science of muscle testing. And it kind of follows this principle that when the body is calm and balanced, the nervous system is balanced, and therefore muscle tone and strength is normal. But when there is stress, the presence of stress or a disruption in the nervous system, there's a disruption in the connection between the brain and the muscles. So your muscles will test weaker. Where I normally start with people is having them link their fingers and think of something really positive and try and pull their fingers apart, and they'll feel that resistance and it's very difficult. But when you're thinking of something stressful, it's much easier to pull your fingers apart. And it's because the stress is weakening the nervous system. So what kinesiology does is actually goes further to pinpoint what that is. What is that that's disrupting the nervous system? Everything is a vibration. Emotions are a vibration. All the organs have their own frequency. So kinesiology uses this muscle testing to test different aspects of the body and go, where is this stress held? What is the nature of this stress? What emotion is it? Is it something unresolved? Is it something from the past? Is it an organ that's out of balance? Is it a meridian that's out of balance? So it's using the muscle testing, but it's blending a lot of Chinese medicine techniques with the Western approach to the musculoskeletal system, and then also layering on top of that animal behavior. And the science of it that we understand. So it's blending the two very seamlessly together to give us the whole picture of what's going on.
It's really a very holistic approach, isn't it? And you mentioned the nervous system. That's something that I concentrate on quite a lot with my behavior consults, is helping owners understand what is actually going on inside for their dogs. And when that nervous system is disrupted or overwhelmed, that's when we see those behaviors. So it's a great support, the training.
Definitely. It's understanding where the foundations were shaky in the first place,
Yeah.
and then knowing what you need to correct to move forward. And so when trainers are bringing energy therapies into it, they are really getting a much clearer picture of what's going on, and then knowing how to support a dog. And so therefore you can move away from like the task-based training, the cookie cutter approach to training, because every person is completely unique, and therefore so is every animal. And when a dog has developed a behavior issue, it's very specific to them. Even though it looks the same, aggression can look very similar, but the experience of it's very unique to them. Therefore, it doesn't make sense that just one approach is going to fix it for every dog.
100%. So another question, did you always believe in energetic healing? Have you always been that sort of woo-woo person, or was there a moment where you changed your perspective? Because I know a lot of trainers are very black and white. It is kind of a black and white industry. You and I will both know that. And people are very set in their ways. So were you like that and then transitioned, or have you always kind of been a little bit woo?
No, I wouldn't say I've always been that way. I think looking back, it's only when you're looking backwards that you're connecting the dots of like how you got somewhere and how there's been signs all along. But as I was younger, I was really in tune with animals. I was very sensitive to the needs of animals, and I think was very connected to their emotions. And I could almost have like conversations with them. I could almost imagine what they would be saying and how they would be feeling. So I was really aware of that. And I later did explore animal communication and recognized it was a form of that I'd had, all of those years. But no, like I would have said I was very practical, very scientific, especially going into the dog training world and the behavioral stuff. It was, very science based. So I didn't really think too much about the energy side of it. However, there was an incident with one of my dogs. He was a rescue dog, but I knew where he came from. He came from a farm. So I knew the environment he had been in. And he was great. Like, he was great, didn't have any issues. But what happened was, for some reason, I had watched a documentary on animal rights. I think it's called Earthlings. It's quite harrowing. I'd probably say you should watch it, but then I'm like, no, not if you have a nervous disposition. And there was a scene in that movie really upset me, and it was of a street dog being shot. I think this was in South America somewhere, and then being thrown in the back of a bin lorry. And the dog wasn't dead, but it wasn't fighting back. And then the claws were coming down from the bin lorry. And it was horrific. It was horrific. And I just sobbed. I had to switch the movie off, the documentary off, and I couldn't get past it. It shocked me for days. I think I was actually in shock. And I don't know exactly. I mean, obviously it was a harrowing thing, but I don't know what it was, whether it was just that feeling of helplessness on my part and on, from the dog's part. I just couldn't understand it. But I looked into a few different ways to clear this as a trauma. I did EFT tapping and things like that. But I noticed that whenever I heard a bin lorry coming, I would get really anxious. Like, it brought it back to me. It wasn't even a first-hand experience, but it just would bring it back to me, and I could feel it right through my body. And then I noticed that my dog, every time a bin lorry came round, he would leap the fence and just take off. And he became scared of the bin lorry. Now, he'd come from a farm with tractors and things, so he wasn't scared of those things before. So I then thought, this has to be my stuff. How come he's gone from being absolutely fine to now he's petrified of this thing because I am? And he wasn't there when I was watching the documentary, but I knew he was picking up on me. And I thought, okay, I need to resolve this. And it did take me about 6 months to fully explore it and resolve it. And then it resolved it for him as well. That just disappeared. But I was so curious as to what that was and how he could pick up my emotions, and not just my emotions, but to that specific trigger. I was like, there has to be something there. What if this exists for more dogs and they're humans? There's this mirror that no one's really noticing. There's connections not being made. That was the turning point. It was like, okay, I need to look at the unseen now. What is it we're not seeing about this? And yeah, that took me down that that.
That's such a perfect example. If you think about it, when we do see behavior issues with dogs, the owner tenses up before the behavior even happens because that's what they're anticipating. So it makes absolute sense. So, for people out there that are new to this kind of thing, what are some signs or some inclinations where you might go, okay, my dog is going to actually benefit from energetic healing? Is there anything in particular, or can all dogs benefit from it? What's kind of the rule of thumb?
I think it's something all dogs can benefit from. I think in its best form, it's used as a preventative approach to maintaining wellness. It is if you can clear little stresses as they come up and little imbalances as they come up, then your dog is going to be much more stable moving forward. So I think that's always the first aim, is to use it there. But from a behavioral point of view, I would be suggesting kinesiology or energy healing in general, when the training's just not hitting the mark, where you're aware that, no, I'm doing everything right, but I can't get past a certain point. And I think it's then looking at, well, what is unresolved that is preventing the dog learning this new thing I'm trying to teach them, this new way of being. I would say when things aren't working, when the training's not moving forward as it should be, we're using kinesiology to look at what's the block.
Yeah.
What needs to be resolved first? What does the dog need to release or learn about themselves or learn about the world in order for them to learn and integrate this new thing that you're trying to teach them?
Coming back to that nervous system, if there isn't that balance and there are those energetic blocks, they can't learn. So no amount of training is going to work. I've seen it with my boy Kip. He's just got so much emotional trauma that, I was saying to you earlier, just teaching him a simple sit was impossible because he just had so many emotional blocks. So it's definitely something to think about if you're feeling a little bit stuck with your training. You mentioned kinesiology, obviously, but then also energy healing. So what are the differences? Because there's Reiki, there's energy healing, there's sound therapy now is becoming a thing. What is the difference between all these modalities?
Yeah, they're all very similar. They're all vibration medicine. So they're all going to work on frequencies that the body needs to clear. So if we think of, again, every emotion has a vibration or a frequency. Every organ of the body has a frequency. Every muscle of the body has a frequency, and as do even the cells of the body. And so collectively, all that is called the biofield. So it's like the tune of everything together. And so when something's off balance, it changes the frequency. So when you're going to bring in energy healing, the premise there is it's going to clear out the vibrations which are off balance. It's going to retune the biofield and therefore change the body's level of wellness and remove stress. Now, kinesiology is a bit different because it's very targeted. We're working with a specific issue. We're identifying the core emotion that's not resolved. So we're getting to the nitty gritty of it, the specific frequency. We're then looking at, well, where did this first come from? So we're clearing a past issue. We're age regressing an animal back to what's the point of origin of this stress? Other areas of the body has it impacted over time? Really, really fine tuning it. What is the emotional mirror with the human? What's the unseen part of the puzzle that we need to also include in this. And then when we bring in a correction, we call them energetic corrections at the end. Again, we are selecting one based on what vibration do I need to introduce, which is going to counteract all of this and clear it. So as you go through that process, you're gaining a lot of information. You're getting the emotions, you're starting to build the story of the animal, the story of that stress, where it originated from, and what is going to be necessary to clear it. So I think that's where the approach is different. It's very, very targeted, therefore it's very powerful and specific. Reiki is another great modality. Not I'm going to say generic because it's very powerful, but it's working on a different level. It's sort of an all body experience. But for us who are working with trying to change animal behaviour, that extra piece of information helps us build training plans and support for the dog afterwards. So that's the difference. It's not that one could necessarily work better with the other. It's that kinesiology integrates easier into the bigger picture because we have more information to then base all of our other decisions on as well. And then that includes the human, the dog's owner as well, is we're going to be identifying that mirror. So we're going to be help releasing their stress as well. So it's just a little bit different. Sound therapy, again, is great, but it's not targeted. And so your sound therapy is only going to be working on a smaller part of the puzzle. If you're anything like me and I just need to know why. Why is this happening? What do I need to do to fix it? How can I share the story of the animal in a way that it's going to benefit it moving forward? I think that's where I found anyway kinesiology has that added benefit, but any kind of energy healing is great.
I in particular found, because you did the age regression with Kip, so just for people that don't know, Kip is a rescue dog. We have no idea about his background, but has obviously been through some extreme trauma. And the age regression that you did really pinpointed some traumas, which helped me then understand where he's coming from. Kip displays extreme fear, but then getting that little window into, okay, this is possibly what happened to him when he was a very young puppy, it just kind of opens up your mind and your heart so that you can be a little bit more empathetic. So when he does display those behaviors, which to us as humans seem like completely over the top, you understand, okay, this is where he's coming from. And it helps you as the human to kind of deal with it a little bit calmer and kinder, I suppose, as well, and be a little bit more understanding.
Absolutely. Just the other week, I was working with a dog whose trauma, like he was very reactive and had issues with boundaries. And the age regression went back to 31 seconds old. He was 31 seconds old.
Wow.
And you just think, whoa, what's
Yeah.
there? And his owner explained that as he was being born, his mother had turned and had pulled him out, had actually pulled him out, still in a sack, and had ripped off two of his toes in the
Wow.
process. Yeah. And so he had immediately had to have veterinary care and was kind of rehabilitated for that. That's a huge trauma for a puppy. Immediately when he should just be cozying up to
Yeah.
mom, he's been receiving treatment. He's been in pain every time he was touched. And as that has developed, he's, obviously had these issues with boundaries that had come from it. So the age regression is so important because what could just appear to be a dog that has reactivity issues, but also has two missing toes, you might think they're separate issues, but it's like, no, it's the trauma from that needs to be resolved. And what can we learn about that we can help moving forward with his training as well?
It's just absolutely fascinating, isn't it? If people are interested in this kind of thing, is there anything that they can do at home to kind of keep their dog's energy balanced?
Yeah, I think when we look at it from that holistic perspective of the energy field, the biofield is the resonance of every vibration in the body. I think it's really important for people to start with the basics of feeding really good food. Like good, nutritious food really helps
Yep.
the organs stay balanced. Therefore, the emotions are balanced. Therefore, the body is balanced. And I think it's like using enrichment experiences as well. I think So when we're talking about energy balance, we're talking about emotional balance as well. The best thing people can do is allow and support and facilitate their dogs living a joyful life of curiosity, where they get to explore, they get to try new things, they get their time to sniff and engage in lots of different things, because that builds resiliency. When dogs are allowed to do that. So those emotions of curiosity and creativity and the emotions of joy, they're not compatible with anxiety. So the more we can hold our dogs in those states, the less anxious they're going to be. And that can be done through lots of different games and, just like that enrichment and building resiliency. I think we don't always want to make it too easy for our dogs. I feel there's really a difference between although we treat our dogs like our children, we don't in a certain way. And so when it's our children we're raising, we know that we need to build resiliency. We know that we need to support them as they overcome struggles, but don't take away the struggle, to build that resiliency. And we have to do that for our dogs as well. So sometimes people find that difficult to even watch their dog be just a little bit stressed, even by just you removing your attention from them for 10 minutes. Some dogs get really stressed and people can't witness that. But sometimes we have to. Sometimes we have to just allow the dog to process that, to be stressed, but then process it and release it. So I think balancing energy is about building resiliency, that emotional resiliency as well. And the final aspect is recognizing how the human feels. When their dog is behaving a certain way, what does it bring up for them? If it's separation anxiety, is it bringing up feelings of abandonment for them or memories of abandonment? And then I think being able to clear that and work through that for them also helps their dog support their energy. So rather than it be just, like one thing, I think we need to look at the whole picture. The energy is complex and therefore supporting it is complex, but also surprisingly common sense as well.
It really is. And I've found that with my behavior consults, it can be the smallest thing. Moving the placement of a bed can change everything. It really can be small little things. And sometimes you do need someone to point out the obvious and go, oh, of course, that makes sense. But it really is a holistic thing. It isn't just about behavior training. It isn't just about diet. It isn't just about energy healing. It really is incorporating everything together. I think for a lot of people, especially if they have a rescue dog, they feel that guilt that they don't want them to ever feel unsafe or ever feel any of those bad emotions. So that can be a struggle for some people to actually allow them to work themselves through that.
I think for us as well, recognizing that confidence isn't just something that you have, it's something that you build. And you build that confidence every time you overcome an obstacle, every time you overcome a struggle, every time you're challenged in some way and you find a solution. The confidence comes from within, that you trust yourself in any situation. And I think that's where, when we move that to dogs, especially rescue dogs, we want to keep it all easy for them, because they've been through trauma, but trauma is not the same as challenge. And, learning to overcome obstacles and problem solve to make themselves more confident. And therefore, they don't need to control the environment as a way of controlling their emotions. And so I think that's, where there is that ambiguity, and people do struggle with, they want to save, they can still get stuck with the rescue. This is a rescue dog. This is a traumatized dog. And they don't want that dog to ever struggle again, without recognizing that that struggle is sometimes necessary to build resiliency. I mean, not trauma, but little, like even with free shaping, with training, just where you can use clicker training, do some free shaping with a dog where they have to try and explore different things. A lot of people find that really stressful, because when their dog doesn't immediately know the answer, they get stressed. But it's like, no, let your dog process that and then start rewarding any movement towards finding a solution.
It's really about providing that safe place. That's the difference really between trauma and learning, isn't it? If we're trying to teach them something in an unsafe environment, that's where it becomes a trauma. Whereas when we're challenging them in a safe environment where nothing can go wrong, that's where they start developing that confidence, and they can start building and starting to live with the environment as it is, as unpredictable as it can be too.
Yeah, and I think, lots of the training now, and I know that you do this, is moving towards games and things where you're building confidence and building calm, is recognizing that trauma does not need to be resolved around the trigger. And when we do that, it just doesn't work. So, and I use this example all the time, like if you were a person who was attacked and beaten up in the street, right, and you're holding trauma from that, and because of that you're anxious about going out, the solution is not to be around more people who are not beating you up. That's not the solution. The solution is not, okay, well, let's just have you around more people who are not beating you up, and then you're going to get over it. Like, that's not going to happen. You're going to have to resolve the trauma of that. And that's going to be about overcoming things out of your control, unpredictability, and then the anxiety that that creates. And so that's resolved away from the trigger. It's resolved away from people. It's that relationship with yourself needs to change. So you build that confidence in yourself. And it's the same with dogs that have been traumatized or attacked. The solution is not to have them in a dog park and learn to just be around more dogs that are not attacking them. The solution is to resolve the trauma and rebuild their relationship with themselves and that resiliency. And that's done away from that. It's done with the games. And so then when you do bring them back with dogs, the response is really, really, really different.
For people who are already in a training program or behavior training, or very commonly these days on medication, can energy healing help with that? If they, at that point, that the behavior's got to such a point the owners can't cope anymore and they've put them on medication as a last resort. Where does energy healing fit in with that?
Well, I think specifically with the kinesiology, it's about resolving the unresolved emotion behind it. I think the medication is really necessary in a lot of cases. I think that the two need to work well together. So it can take the edge off things, but it essentially creates a gap for the dog to learn something else. But energy healing is coming in to help resolve and release the trauma that's driven the behavior, because we always need to be aware that their behavior isn't the problem. Their behavior is their solution to the problem.
Yeah.
And so the medication just takes away their solution. Sometimes training is trying to teach them that, this isn't the solution, but it's not addressing the problem. And so whatever is unresolved within the body, again, it's a vibration. The unresolved emotion is just a vibration. That's the science of it. And when we look at that, then we're just introducing something that's going to clear that vibration, so it doesn't have that effect on the body. So there's an integrative approach, but I do think it's a necessary one, especially in those extreme cases.
And I think that's the beauty of energy healing, is that it doesn't matter if your dog's on medication. The energy healing can't mess that up or interfere with that.
And it does support as well post-medication, where they need to be coming
Yeah.
off that medication, is there needs to be that level of resiliency. And it always comes back to releasing trauma to help the dog improve the relationship and trust and confidence they have within themselves.
One myth about energy healing for animals that you wish people would stop believing.
I think the woo-woo side of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the most damaging stereotype to the industry at the moment. I think even just the image of an energy healer, you think braids and flowy skirts and, like beads and all of that stuff. And and that's just not me. Like, I'm just super practical. And I always refer to myself as woo adjacent, because I'm like, yeah, I've got one foot in there, but I'm also deeply grounded in the science of it. So I think we need to move away from even the notion of spiritual healing. Is different. It's different to energy medicine. And energy medicine is quantum physics. It's quantum healing. It's very much backed in science that we can change the frequency of things, by introducing new frequencies, basically. And even at cellular level, the science behind it is insane. And recognizing that feedback loop as well that exists between, the energy field of a dog and their human. I do get some emails from people like, oh, I'm just not sure I really believe in that. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't believe in it? It's a science. It's not a belief system.
And it has been around for thousands and thousands of years.
And even Einstein was famously quoted as saying the future of medicine will be vibrational medicine because of the quantum field. But it's just differentiating that between like spiritual healing to actually what's the frequency of the body and what do I need to introduce to bring it back to balance. It's quite different. So
I know you work with dogs all over the world, not just in Australia. So you've worked with a lot of different dogs and animals. What is one of the most powerful transformations that you've seen through your work?
I think like every animal that I work with, I'm absolutely blown away with their story. But I think the most powerful transformations have been with like dogs with anxiety. So one dog in particular, with a little dog in Singapore, had separation anxiety, was really reactive to dogs outside of the home, very codependent with the owner, hence the separation anxiety. Also had skin issues, also had digestive issues, didn't like being groomed, all of these different aspects. And so when you're working with it, you're really then thinking that you're working with all of these separate issues, but they were all from the same issue, which was an issue with boundaries. So holding inappropriate boundaries. So you have the one end of the spectrum as the codependency, and the other end is the defensiveness, is the reactivity, is overly protecting their boundaries. And then the digestive system is a boundary, and nutrients are absorbed through the boundaries of the digestive system, and enzymes are secreted into the digestive system. So things have to move across that boundary. Food is going from the outside world into the internal environment. The digestive system is about processing, take what you need and let the rest go, let the toxic stuff go, let the waste go. And the skin is another boundary. It is that boundary between the outside and inside world. And so all of these issues were around boundaries, not being able to hold appropriate boundaries. And we actually explored what that was and age regressed the dog back to a time when it was a very, very young puppy and it was being overly handled by lots of people coming into the house, where you think that's the right thing to do, but
Yes.
that dog didn't feel safe. And, the owner even described a situation where the puppy was dropped. A child had picked it up and dropped it. So from that very, very early age, it learned that it had no boundaries, that it didn't, as a young puppy, it couldn't protect its boundaries. But it never resolved that feeling of helplessness and inability to protect itself. And then when we worked with that issue, we found the same issue with the human, where it was to do with having boundaries crossed, mixed with a fear of abandonment, and how they were mirroring each other. And she also had issues with boundaries, could be codependent with some people and standoffish with others, and found it difficult to open up emotionally, didn't feel safe a lot of the time, didn't like being touched unless it was by people she really knew. And we saw that they were mirrored. So when we resolved that issue, within a few weeks, everything had changed. The dog's skin cleared up, the digestive system rebalanced, separation anxiety changed pretty much overnight. And then it took about 3 or 4 weeks for the reactivity to disappear, because I think what was important there was the dog had to relearn that it was safe to have its boundaries crossed. So that's not just that fear goes and that's it. He needed to be exposed to that a few different times to learn that he felt differently now about it and accept it. So that had a more of an accumulated benefit. But that was a dog that had a collection of issues that didn't seem to be connected, but actually were all from the same thing. They were just different expressions of the same unresolved fear. So that for that dog, it made a massive shift because so many issues were cleared and that was actually just in one session.
When you actually break it down, it makes sense, especially the skin issues. There's so many dogs with skin issues at the moment. And it does make you wonder what is going on. Is it really the environment? There's always, I feel, that layer underneath? Why are their bodies reacting to the environment like that?
And even like with people, we understand this better now. We know that anxiety and skin issues are very much linked. We know that breathing difficulties is also linked to skin issues. For example, kids that have asthma often have eczema as well. So when you're anxious, you don't breathe properly. Therefore, the body triages oxygen and it's going to put it to the vital organs. The skin is the last one to receive that oxygenated blood. And then we have the added complications of the brachycephalic dogs, the compromised breathing as well. They often have skin issues. And it's because there's not enough oxygen getting into supply to the whole body. So, and then the other thing as well is when their skin will get itchy when they're out, but it's because they're exercising and they can't get enough air in. And then the skin becomes irritated afterwards. The skin issues is a huge combination of different things, but anxiety plays a huge part in it for sure as well.
If there was one thing you wish that every dog owner understood about their dog's emotional world, what would that be?
I think it would be to recognize that it'd be very similar to your own.
Yes.
Think that's it. I think dogs have a limited way of showing their emotions, but it doesn't mean that they're not experiencing that full spectrum of emotions as well. And it's not about like humanizing them. It's not about that, but it's about recognizing that that emotional range is there and that how they feel about things will actually be more of a mirror for you than you actually realize. When your dog is struggling with something, always ask the question, what is the dog trying to resolve? How am I trying to resolve that issue within myself? What emotion does this bring up for me? How is this a mirror for me? Because that insight helps you understand what's going on for the dog. But their emotional world is very, very similar to ours.
It is. It is very similar. And I think traditionally we've thought of dogs are just animals. They don't have feelings and emotions. I think all animals do, maybe some more than others. And that's why we're more connected with dogs and horses and whatever else. Some people, it's chickens that I've recently found out people are very attached to their chickens.
I think the more simplistic the behaviors are, we think, okay, well, the emotions must be simple as well. And it's just not the case. Some of the most emotionally troubled people give very little signs of it. It doesn't mean that there's not stuff going on. I would just say I think people need to be aware of that and exploring the depths of that as well. And certainly one of the ways is if you understand how that pattern shows up for you, it's another insight and another lens through which to view what could be going on for your dog as well.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I know you have got some amazing online courses. So if someone's interested in this and they just want to go and have a dabble, you do have amazing courses, which I've taken. I think I've taken all of them. And Claire is just an amazing teacher. And obviously, as you can hear, she's got so much knowledge and breaks things down so beautifully. What are some of the courses that you've got available? You obviously are also available for one-to-one. But if somebody wants to start digging into this, what are some of the courses they can do with you?
Well, my starter course is a very, very small course. It works at about 44 Australian dollars. Is energy healing for sensitive dogs, where you will learn muscle testing. You will learn to identify the core fear for your dog, and then how that is a mirror for you, and then a simple energetic correction. So that's just a taster to see how you sit with that. Then the next one is animal chakras, and so it's delving into the chakras of the body and how those chakras connect to organs and muscles and past traumas and recognize them as libraries of information. And by balancing the chakras of the body, you can resolve a lot of trauma. So that's my sort of intermediate course. But then I do have a fully comprehensive course called Kinesiology for Animals. And that's more for people who would like to work in this field. And it takes you through how to work with any animal, any issue, balance meridians, chakras, muscles, organs, recognize and identify past trauma, and then how to work with the emotional mirror of the human, etc. So that's my fully comprehensive course that's there as well. So there's something for everyone, depending on your level of interest.
This is just another tool in the toolbox. Just like your training, you've got all these tools to use. This is just something else. So I'll pop a link to your website in the show notes. So if you are interested in any of that, go and have a look at Claire's stuff. She's amazing. She's got the most beautiful website. They not expensive. Claire is very generous with her courses. I think she's undercharging everybody. So quickly get in before she puts the prices up. Well, thanks, Claire, so much for your time today. As always, you just blow my mind with all the information, and everything just makes so much sense. So thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I love what you do. I love your approach to dog training. I love the way you have developed a support system for anxious dogs and how you're combining it with energy medicine as well. It's absolutely perfect. I love what you do. Big supporter
Thank
of your
you.
work.
Thanks, Claire. And for everybody else, I will see you next week for the next episode. And as usual, throw your dog a treat from us. See ya.